It's Wednesday, the 14th of October 2020, and you're listening to the Film School podcast. This is episode 14, where we are discussing the one and only Upgrade as our main movie of the week. Joined with me, we have the SanspantsRadios own Joel Duscher. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks so much for having me again. After I was so rude to you last time, good to be back.
Thank you so much for stopping by and joining us in on this episode while Emily subs out. We have the film guru himself, Josh J. Luke. How you doing, Josh?
I'm doing well, but I love how Joel got the intro as if he's the regular, and I'm subbing in for M this week.
Oh,
So, good
yep.
to be here, guys. Thanks for having me. I am really excited to be here.
I'll be honest, I saw Joel's name written on the notes and I was like, well, I'm just going to introduce him first now, aren't I? And luckily last, we have the rom-com expert, Kris Birchie. How you doing, Kris?
I'm good, thanks. I'm hoping you can hear me because my Discord just said you cannot hear me. So
No,
hopefully I'm well and audible.
we can definitely hear you.
Perfect.
For those of you who don't know, Film School Podcast is a podcast where we sit and talk about the movies that we have watched throughout the week, followed by a main topic. And that this week's is Upgrade. You can follow us on Letterboxd as individuals. So you've got King Frogby as myself, Josh is J Luke, Emily is MJP74, and Kris Birchie is Birchie. What about yourself, Joel? What's your Joel?
So it's just Duscher, or yeah, because I've like got my full name on my Letterboxd account as well. So my username is just Duscher, which is Duscher, or you can just find me if you search for Joel Duscher. Which is the same thing, but just with Joel in front of it. So really, I don't know why I would bother typing that extra part, but the option's there.
No. Okay. Cool. So, Joel, why don't you start us off and tell us a bit more about what you watched this week?
So, this is the second year I've had Letterboxd, and last year saw a lot of like Halloween challenges floating around, I guess. When it comes to Letterboxd and challenges, it's rarely a challenge, and more just like how many movies can I watch in a short period of time. So this month I decided I'd get around the Halloween hype and try and watch 31 horror movies in October. So this week has mostly been horror films. The two that I'm going to be talking about today are definitely horror films. And the first one I watched was something that I had heard about since I was in high school, but had never seen, which is The Hills Have Eyes remake. So originally it was a Wes Craven film in his early years after Last House on the Left, which is something I also watched recently and is fucked. He then went on to make The Hills Have Eyes. And this was a little bit before Wes Craven started to find his stride. Like his first two films do have their fans, but this is like pre Nightmare on Elm Street and stuff like that. Before he like really cements himself as like one of the like I guess one of the original like horror masters. But yeah, in 2006 they remade The Hills Have Eyes, which kind of happened around the same time that we started getting remakes like Friday the 13th, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. A little bit later on, you get the Nightmare on Elm Street remake as well. And I've seen like a few of them. Recently, I watched the Friday the 13th remake, and it's just like stupid slasher, like almost in a similar vein to like a Final Destination, where like the gore is really over the top. The characters are barely characters. Everyone's just like a stupid teenager. You don't really care about them. It's mostly like, even though it's a horror movie, it's one of those like silly, kind of fun, even though it's violent horror movies. The Hills Have Eyes remake is not that. It is so fucked. It's very fucked. It's very bleak. It's very upsetting, and had some like scenes where I was genuinely like, "Oh no, this feels bad to watch." Um, yeah. Which look, I've been watching movies pretty consistently since I was in high school. So that was like 11 or 12 years ago now. So like I've seen fair share of fucked stuff.
Yep.
But yeah, sometimes like stuff like this still comes along where I'm like, it's not actually going to be that bad. So like I guess a good example is I saw Hostel for the first time like a couple of years ago and was like, like I mean, yeah, sure, cool, but like it's not that bad. But like this rolled around and I was like, oh no, there's like some legitimately like real upsetting shit in this.
Well, that's a hard no from me. I'm never checking this movie out.
Oh, like it's not even necessarily like there is some like real brutal violence that it kind of lingers on, but it's more just like some of the situations that the characters find themselves in. You're like, oh no, that's not nice. Like, there's a point where a baby gets a gun pointed directly into its face, like in front of the mom, and you're like, oh yeah, no thank you. But yeah, it was like really, really, really surprised with like, this is one of those movies where it did a lot of stuff well, and whilst I was spent most of the movies being like, oh no, oh I feel so bad. It was like it really took me by surprise, and I like quite enjoyed it. I gave it a 3.5, but yeah, for the type of movie this is, a 3.5 is a huge score.
Absolutely, 3.5 is a huge score. Do you find it weird that? So I'm assuming the original is still very bleak, despite maybe not being that outwardly fucked, right?
Yeah, I haven't seen the original. I was tossing up between watching the original and this. Yeah, I did a weird thing where I watched the original Last House on the Left and then watched the remake of Hills Have Eyes rather than just committing to doing the
One
same.
or the other. Yeah.
Do you think you'll go back and watch the original Hills Have Eyes now that you've seen the remake, or you just not?
Yeah, I want to suss out how long it is, because one thing with the Hills Have Eyes remake is it's like 100. It's pushing 105 minutes or something like that, which is long for a horror movie. So if the original is like a little more lean than that, I'll probably watch it. But if it's again pushing 2 hours, I might give it a miss.
Yeah.
Because as far as I know, the story is almost exactly the same. It's just some of the events are a bit different. One thing I did appreciate with this is that the movie gives you a chance to learn about the characters before things really kick off. It's not like let's just use Friday the 13th remake as an example, because that's like something that I guess out of all of those like slasher remakes, that one's probably the most famous as well, where like you just pick like characters being picked off one by one from the get-go. I mean, like Friday the 13th remake has like a false start where like fucking 10 people die in like the first 20 minutes. With this, nothing really happens. You're just spending time with the characters for 45 minutes. Then there's like 1 or 2 bad things, and then there's a huge bad thing, and then it kind of, you just like things really kick off. Like it, to the point where even though this is technically a slasher, it kind of feels like, and the time when this got released kind of works out like this, but it kind of feels like in between like a slasher movie and like torture porn, because it borrows from both.
This does not sound like a film for me, but I know that Josh will end up making me watch it at some point. I can feel it. I can feel it.
I haven't even seen this one, so maybe I should give it a preemptive watch.
Yeah, it's not like, if someone doesn't like Adam, I know that you are famously a very, very, very spineless person when it comes to horror movies.
100%.
Just in general. So just
No,
horror movies.
piss off.
Yeah, I've heard, Adam, you're a real piece of shit, and
yeah, exactly.
just salt of the earth, motherfucker.
Just everything scares me. Like, I just don't like high tension situations.
Yeah, this kind of, it's more, there's not really many jump scares. I don't even think there's any in this, but it's just like real unpleasant violence, and then just making you like sit in it. Like the scenes where a bad thing happens, the movie doesn't like cut away from it and then cut back to something that's unrelated. It's like a character dies, but then the character that's alive will be in the room with the dead character.
Okay, so it's just really bleak.
Yeah. But yeah, like,
all right.
If you haven't seen it and you've seen a lot of horror movies, like, I'd recommend checking it out, because the director, whose name I have not got written down,
is it Alexandra Aja or something?
Yeah, that's it.
It just came off my head because I looked it up, because he directed some very famous movies, I believe.
Yeah, so recently he made Crawl, which is
the one where she's stuck in the space with the crocodile.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that was sick.
His his breakthrough, I guess, is a movie called High Tension, which is
that's the one.
Yeah, which is on Shudder in Australia. If you want to check it out. Apparently that's also incredibly violent, but yeah, that's the one that kind of got him noticed, and then he got this movie off that. And another weird thing with Hills Have Eyes is not only is it really bleak or really violent, it made a shitload of money. So I don't know what was going on in 2006, but everyone, I guess, was just like, yeah, fuck me up.
See, the thing is, like, I know the name too. Like, I don't think anyone doesn't know the name Hills Have Eyes as like a horror movie to check out. I don't know. Yeah. I have no desire to watch it, but I feel like it's like kind of like Silent Hill, right? Everyone knows the name Silent Hill.
Yeah.
But the one I was going to mention was he also directed Horns, which is an adaptation of Stephen King's son's novel.
That's the one with Daniel Radcliffe,
Daniel Radcliffe, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't mind that movie. Real weird,
It's a good
though.
movie. Yeah.
Real weird. All right, Josh, what did you watch this week?
So moving on from that, and it's quite funny because I think me and Joel were watching these two movies at the same time, and we're just having a completely different time. I watched Some Like It Hot, which is a classic 1959 romantic comedy film directed by Billy Wilder. It stars Tony Curtis, Jack Lemmon, and the one and only Marilyn Monroe. Curtis and Lemmon star as two struggling musicians who sort of witness a mob hit in Chicago on their way out of town. They narrowly escape the mob and decide they need to both get out of town and take disguise in order to save their lives. Luckily, they heard about a band in Florida that needs a bassist and a saxophonist. Only thing is that it's an all-female band. Well, that doesn't stop the boys, and they dress for the part, and that's where the hijinks ensue. They both fall for Marilyn Monroe's character, who is also part of the band, and it's just a really good time. It's extraordinarily progressive for the 50s. Like, you would not believe some of the gags they make in this, which have aged so well. And I couldn't not recommend this film to people. Even if you're not a fan of old comedies, the comedy in this just works on so many levels. All the characters are so endearing, and everyone's just fully committing to their characters. And you really get to notice why Marilyn Monroe has become the legendary figure she is, because she's just so effervescent. I can't even really say that word, and so effortlessly charming in this. And I loved it, and I can't believe that I waited so long to watch this, because with this year I've been trying to watch this for months, but just over the years I was like, oh yeah, I've heard that's good, I'll put it on, because there's not too many Marilyn Monroe movies that are actually supposed to be really, really good, but this is one of them. And I'm glad I finally got around to watching it. And it was a nice little break from my sort of 31 horror movie October, which I think I'm probably already past at this point.
Is it colour or black and white?
It's black and white, which is interesting because what year did colour come in? I'm pretty sure they would have.
It came in by this point. What, 1955? Yeah, definitely. Okay.
1959. Sorry.
Oh, 59. Oh, yeah, definitely.
But the black and white works. It actually helps with the old school Hollywood feel of the film. It feels like an old Hollywood film in the best way. And like the Chicago gangsters are real old school Chicago gangsters, like you think you'd see out of the Untouchables. People have got Tommy guns and everything. It's just classic. It's one of the greatest comedies of all time in a lot of people's eyes, and I can see why. I think you've seen this, haven't you, Joel?
Yeah, I've seen it. I watched it when I was in uni. And yeah, when I watched it, I was... Yeah, fuck. It would have been... Jesus, like 8 or 9 years ago. I don't remember it super well, but I remember like when I watched it, I was taken by surprise with how well... Like, you'd think, considering the subject matter of the film, I remember it taking me by surprise with how, I guess, unproblematic some of it is.
Yeah,
And yeah, the jokes are legitimately funny. It has like a really famous ending as well that I vaguely knew about and then forgot about, and then when I was watching it, laughed a lot at.
Yeah. So I gave this one a 4.5. I'm sure a lot of people give it a 5, but hey, nobody's perfect. So what do we got, Chris?
That sounded really good. I think I'll have to give it a watch.
I think it's on Stan if you are looking to check it out.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'm way more inclined if it's on Stan. I thought I had to like rent it or something.
And if anyone else is looking for another Marilyn Monroe movie that's like worth watching, 7 Year Itch is really good as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, also in university.
And I'm gonna just do a little shout out to some of our friends because I know we have some big wrestling fans out there. Billy Kidman used that as the name of his finisher in the old WCW days.
Huge.
Yeah, huge. Massive.
I'm more surprised we have wrestling fans. Yeah, all right, Chris, what did you watch?
Yeah, I watched Birds of Prey. It's got a really long title, and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. So it's a follow-up to Suicide Squad, or sort of a follow-up. The character's a follow-up. The main sort of plot from it is that the Joker and Harley Quinn, who's played by Margot Robbie, break up, and then essentially all the people that she's wronged in the previous years are now able to come after her, so that she doesn't have that protection anymore. So the main person that she wronged, or wants to come after her, is the main villain, which is Black Mask, who's played by Ewan McGregor. And essentially, it's a story of there's a group of badass female characters. They all team up for their own survival against this Black Mask character. And yeah, there's a bit of a slide plot where there's a gem that needs to be found, or I think it's a diamond, and it unlocks something to do with the Bertinelli crime family fortune. So I watched it. I did enjoy the movie. The acting I did like. I reckon the acting was really good. It was quite terrific, especially Margot Robbie's accent and her mannerisms. And some of her lines are great. Like I really enjoyed there's a cheeseburger scene where she's just totally infatuated by this cheeseburger, and it actually made me remind me a little bit of that Pulp Fiction dialogue, just for that little part, which was quite nice.
I remember seeing this in cinemas and like wanting that cheeseburger afterwards as well. I was like, man, this is like, if they're selling me on one part of this film, it's that like I really want a cheeseburger.
Cheeseburgers are good.
They did, and they went back to it towards the end too. So they definitely did the double up on wanting that cheeseburger. So the movie as a whole, as I said before, it's decent. I was happy to watch. I'm happy that I have watched it, but I don't need to watch it again. Little on the long side. Very easy viewing. Had some of the female actors in there are great, especially there's a young girl in there who's the kind of like criminal type girl. She's like pickpockets and stuff. I think her name was Cassandra, but it's played by, I've got it written here somewhere, Ella J. Basco. So yeah, she does really well in her role. I'm happy for people to watch it, but as I said, I'm not going to rewatch it. I gave it a 2.5 out of 5.
Sorry, go.
I was going to say, I saw this in the cinema before everything went down, and I hate the original Suicide Squad so much.
So bad.
And watching this, I really wanted to like it, but yeah, I just found it like super forgettable. And it's like, I guess it's kind of like course correction, and it means that like maybe as this goes on, like Harley Quinn will be put in movies that are, I guess, better. But yeah, like there was a lot of this where I was just like, all right, guys, let's
give it.
The
wrap it up.
fight scenes were overly long too at times, but that does happen in a lot of these sort of things. I did forget to mention Margot Robbie was one of the producers as well. So
I feel like she's a great Harley Quinn, right? I feel like that she is a good Harley Quinn. I think that the script was just forgettable. Like the villain, not that big of a deal. I also watched this in theaters. I am absolutely infatuated with Mary Elizabeth Winstead, the chick with like her hair swept to the right. Like, I want her to be in a good film that's not just Scott Pilgrim, because I will watch the shit out of that. But I don't know. Like, this didn't do much for me either.
I haven't seen it, and it's on Netflix, isn't it?
Yeah, recently added.
Yeah, it's recently added to Netflix, and usually when something new's added to Netflix, especially if it's from the last couple of years, I usually just instinctively watch it, just so I've got it out of the way. I've had so many opportunities to watch this, and I've just stared at the banner on the screen and thought, you know what? Nah, just no interest at all. I will probably eventually watch it and be completely underwhelmed by how mediocre it is.
Yeah, it's very much like a fine movie. It's not bad, it's just not good. Yeah. And it's like when the credits roll, you're like, oh, what? I don't really remember. I just have like vague memories of maybe feeling like I kind of watched a Deadpool movie, but I didn't have Deadpool in it.
I often find that worse, because I don't mind hating the shit out of a movie, because at least it's got an emotional reaction out of me.
Yeah.
It's at like 2.5 to low 3 range. It's just like, what was the point of this exercise?
And I think it does itself a disservice just because it's like in the Suicide Squad world. Like, I don't know, as soon as like because they write off the Joker in the first like 2 minutes of it. They're like, oh yeah, he's disappeared or whatever. He's totally and like that's the premise for some of the story. But it's just like, I don't know, just being in that same world, I like lowered it a few points just from that.
And I was going to say, on a 3-point scale for Adam, he dropped it from a 5 to a 1 there, lowering that a few points.
I probably would give this a 1.
Jesus.
On his scale, it's the only one that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a very good point, I guess. I mean, that's doing the movie a huge disservice because it's definitely that means that both Suicide Squad and Birds of Prey are on the same level, and that's not fair. But if everyone is looking for a strong Mary Elizabeth Winstead performance, I recommend checking out 10 Cloverfield Lane, a movie that people didn't really see because it's a Cloverfield movie, but she is so good in it. John Goodman is also the bad guy in it, and he is fucked. Like, very two huge performances there. Both of them going way harder than they should be going in, like what is inevitably kind of like a Cloverfield sequel. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I have a funny story about that film, and I suppose I should probably bring it up here because Reese will probably be listening. I saw that at the drive-in with Reese and another one of our friends, and I was sitting in the back seat, and it was a foggy, quite a smoky evening as well, I guess you'd say. And
Yep.
I still don't think I've seen that movie. I reckon I was staring at the roof of the car for the whole time. I have a basic understanding of the story, but yeah, 10 Cloverfield Lane sounds pretty good.
It's stressful. It's definitely stressful.
Wasn't too stressful for me. What do we got, Adam?
All right, so this week I watched Expedition Happiness. So I got home last night after going down and doing some fishing, and I was just like scrolling through Netflix, and you know, like when you're in one of those moods where like just nothing's hitting, like you're looking through and you're like, I don't feel like a drama, or I don't feel like anything. So I came across this film. It was filmed in 2017, directed by the two main actors, or not actors even. It's just really just like a documentary where you follow these two hipsters from Germany who buy a school bus in North Carolina, drive it into Canada and across to Alaska, and then all the way down and into Mexico. I don't know how they got this onto Netflix. This needs to be on YouTube. There is nothing special. Like, I've watched so many of these like movies like on YouTube. I don't know how they did it. Like someone clearly paid them. Like, they have I guess quite a large social following. The star of the whole movie is their dog, and I just really wanted like this dog traveling all the places as a film. I feel like it's like one of those films where like the idea is that you go away and like you find happiness like on the road and traveling. The whole movie was just like all the problems that they had the entire time. Their dog getting sick, everything was like bad, and there was no like happiness, I would say, in the film. So I don't know. Maybe if you're considering maybe do something a bit better and plan a bit ahead, and have a bit more of a plan.
You basically watched a bad travel vlog this week.
Yeah. I did watch a bad travel vlog.
Look, Adam, just to fuck us up a little bit, what did you give it out of on
So
your
I gave it a 3 because
yeah, of course, because that makes absolutely no fucking sense.
No.
This is the most negative review I've heard. It's like, oh, it's like a bad
all right.
thing.
It's way worse than your Harley Quinn review.
So Adam's sitting there being like, "Oh man, this is like something worse than."
I'm just saying,
but it has a dog that I liked, and there's no happiness in this movie. But it reminded me of being outside, something I'm not allowed to do.
Exactly.
3 stars.
Exactly, and I like honestly, I feel like that's why I got the rating. Was I was watching this and I like totally like discounted the movie, and I was just like, oh god, that looks like a nice place to travel to. It would be really nice if I could leave my 5-kilometer radius.
So that would be a totally sick rating if you didn't have your own internal system that means that every movie is like not up for like interpretation anymore. It's just like it's a 1, a 3, or a 5.
Well, the thing is, right? So like I gave it a 3 because I did enjoy it. Like I enjoyed
But you just said it sucked.
Yeah.
Like as a film.
Okay.
But
so as a movie, it's bad. 3 stars.
See, my rating system. Like, all right, let's go into this, Joel, because we may as well do it now. So my rating system.
Let's not do it because he's done this a million times.
Yeah.
Adam,
no matter how many times he explains it,
let's
it
do
always
this
ends up the same way.
Let's do this. Like, I'll do this. I'll explain your rating system to you.
Didn't enjoy it. Enjoyed it. Great movie. Like, phenomenal movie.
Didn't sound like you enjoyed this movie.
But then also, you just said you enjoyed Harley Quinn, but it was forgettable, so I got 1 star. So
Look,
surely...
I haven't rated it on Letterboxd. I need to rewatch it, and then I'll give a rating. So, like...
This is infuriating.
It's probably worse than the Tom Reed system, but it's an ongoing gag, so we have to keep up with it now.
Exactly. All right, Joel, what was the next movie you watched?
Alright, so I'm continuing to wrap absolutely fucked horror movies because I finally watched the 2018 French horror movie Raw, which when it came out, everyone spoke a lot about, and I was like, I gotta check this out. I have no issue with subtitles or watching foreign films, but I do find that I'm more picky about when I'm in a mood to watch them. So like, I would never not watch a movie because it's not in English, but if I'm like tired or something, I would prefer an English spoken movie, I guess. Um, so I had wanted to watch this for ages. It had sat on my watch list for months. And yeah, the like a couple of days ago, I was like, fuck it. It's 12:30 a.m. Perfect time to watch it. I'm drank coffee in the evening for some reason, so I'm raring to go.
It is pure art cunt hours at this point.
Yeah, exactly. There's no rules. I could fucking watch. Yeah. I don't
Why
know,
would you
a-
decide to watch a movie where you could read that late though? Like,
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I think it's because I was just like really awake, and I was like, well, a horror movie probably is going to make me more awake, but reading will make me tired. My eyes tired, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, look, I watched the whole movie and then was not tired by the end of it. But so the only thing I knew about this movie was that the basic premise, which is that a sorry, I'm very distracted by something that just popped up on my screen. So basically, the basic premise, the basic plot of the movie is that a vegetarian girl goes to a vet uni basically, and as part of an initiation, she's forced to eat horse kidney, which awakens a lust for meat, and she realizes becomes cannibalistic urges basically, and she can't keep it under control. And like movies involving cannibalism, especially horror movies of recent, can be pretty graphic. But I knew that this movie was rated MA in Australia, so I was like, whatever, probably won't be that bad. And I was wrong. This is truly disgusting at points. And not just like bad eating stuff things. Like there's a scene where they're having two characters having a conversation, and one character's hand is like just dragging shit out of a horse's ass because it's a vet school.
Oh, nice.
And like you see all of that. A character vomits up a hairball at one point. It's just horrific. And then also, like seeing a person eat human flesh, it's no good.
I love how we're so inclined these days that the last one you said there actually sounds like the least disgusting to watch.
Yeah, like it's not. Yeah, it's like there's points where it's definitely worse. So like there's a scene in the film where the character kind of first gives into a I guess cannibalistic like desires and like eats a finger, and that's bad. But also like when she first becomes a cannibal, she like breaks out in a rash and goes to a doctor. So like the rash is really bad to look at as well. It's just like it borders on body horror a lot. It's hectic. It's real hectic.
So like you guys sent through the list of movies you're gonna watch today, and I was like, oh, I'll like watch the trailers for all of them and see if like as soon as work finishes, I'll jump in and like watch one of these movies to join in. So I watched this trailer and I was like, nah. And I watched like your other one and I was like, nah. Just like, nah, these aren't movies for me. I think I'll give these all a miss.
Don't need that in my life.
Yep.
Yeah, like I'm really glad I liked it. I watched it. I mean, because I really liked it. There is some stuff like for a 95-minute movie. There's points where it's like a little bit like drags a little bit, but the highs are so high for me. I think I gave this a 4, but on rewatch it could easily jump up to like a 4.5.
Okay.
Yeah, there's some like just truly fucked parts of this movie, and just like out of the blue fucked as well. Like characters just making decisions. And you're like, why are you doing that? Stop. That's awful. I don't want to see this.
Sounds like a 4.5 movie for me.
Well, to you, Adam, it would probably be a 1 or a 3.
Probably because I wouldn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Josh, tell me what you watched.
All right, I'm hopping back on the horror train as well, and I watched a movie called Body Bags, which is actually a television movie that was made in 1993 that was intended to be sort of a pilot for a new anthology horror series in the same fashion as, say, Tales from the Crypt, I guess is the most well-known one. And it was directed by two masters of horror, the absolute master of horror, John Carpenter, and semi-master, maybe co-master, Toby Hooper. Um, so John Carpenter directs one segment. John Carpenter directs two segments. Toby Hooper directs one segment, and there's also a framing story, which is where it most resembles Tales from the Crypt. Tales from the Crypt's really well known for its framing story of having the Crypt Keeper introduce all the stories. He was this sort of undead figure who would crack a few jokes and then lead into the story. A lot like Rod Serling in Twilight Zone. So John Carpenter actually plays the coroner in the framing stories here, and he's hilarious. Fully commits, just JC at his best. And the whole framing for the stories is that he's telling the story of one of the body bags that's come into his morgue. And that's the way we get into the stories. So the first short is called The Gas Station. It focuses on a lone gas station attendant on her first night in Haddonfield, which is the town in which Halloween takes place. There is a serial killer on the loose, and no, it is not Michael Myers just trying to kill as many people as he can. It is someone who is unnamed at this point. So the girl goes through all these sort of different little things that happen to her on her first night. Like she gets locked out. There's a homeless guy who seems really intimidating and really drunk. So everything's just putting her on edge, and the tension's building and tension's building. There's also like this sly little bit of humor, which Carps is known for, and which suits the anthology horror series, especially for TV, very well. There's cameos from another master of horror, Wes Craven, who was mentioned before. Sam Raimi also has an acting cameo here, which is really cool. I can't remember who's the main star of this short, but it's someone quite famous as well. Really thought it had a great time with this one. It is pure John Carpenter, and I thought that one was 4 stars for the first short. He also did the second one, which was called Hair. It's about a bloke who can't deal with going bald, so he chooses to chase miracle cures he sees on TV. He sees one that promises a full head of hair overnight. All he has to do is rub it on and go to sleep. And it works. He wakes up the next morning and he's got a full, luscious, long head of hair. Longer than mine, in fact, and that's not easy to do for someone who was literally bald the day before. Stacey Keach plays the main character of this one. It's very hammy, it's very funny, and it's very fun. It's the perfect film if this was, say, a 2-part episode to have on the back of something as tense as The Gas Station. And I really enjoyed it too. It was probably around the 3.5 to a 4 range, but for the format and what they did, I gave it a 4. Toby Hooper's entry was The Eye, where Mark Hamill plays a minor league baseballer who loses his eye in a sort of in a car accident. So he gets experimental surgery to replace his lost eye. And I'm thinking this might have been where the Simpsons bit came from, where Homer loses his hand and gets Snake's hand attached. I think that may have actually come from this one here, because it's quite predictable, this one. It's a lot darker than the other two in the sense that it's a bit more mean-spirited, and it doesn't have John Carpenter's sort of humor. I know both Adam and Joel, you guys have seen the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Sure have.
I sure have, guys.
Very,
I sure
very
have.
bleak. Very bleak.
Okay.
And that's sort of the tone that he goes for here. It's the funniest part about it is seeing Luke Skywalker with a 70s style porno stash. So that's the funniest part of this one. But other than that, he plays it fairly straight. And while Toby Hooper is a great director, like John Carpenter is one of the all-time great directors, especially in this realm, and it just doesn't hold up as well. I still thought it was a 3. It wasn't bad, but on a whole, I thought the movie itself was a 4. I actually enjoyed it more than what's considered the great horror anthology, I guess, which would be Creepshow. And yeah, had a great time. I suggest if anyone can find it, that they give it a watch.
I won't.
I know you
Yeah,
won't.
it sounds like something that I would enjoy, but I have not seen many horror anthologies before, and I feel like the Body Bags is a weird one for me to start with. Or maybe that's on brand, and I should just do that and should shut up and stop complaining.
I actually think because you've seen like the movies from the guys who made them, they do work very well as shorts. And
Yeah.
I think you'll like Carb's comedy in the framing bits as well. Tom Arnold pops up as well in
Hell yeah.
the framing bits. It's just a great time.
All right, Chris, what did you watch?
I think Kris might have
Disconnected.
some audio.
All right,
issues here.
well, I'm going to jump in and tell you that I watched the worst American Pie film. I watched American Pie Girls Rules, and I was so happy. Joel reached out, took a screenshot of it, and be like, I love how thirsty you are, Adam.
He did say thirsty.
I did not say thirsty, Adam. I said horny, and I stand by it.
Yeah,
You were
I was.
very horny, my friend.
100%. So you go into an American Pie movie with the expectation for nudity. So it's another night in lockdown, and I'm just like,
Adam,
Does everyone?
everyone does.
Adam,
Come on.
I don't think that the American Pie movies aren't like famous for the nudity. I guess like the first two have like iconic scenes that involve it.
Or just
but,
okay.
I don't know. Actually, the straight to DVD ones have quite a few nudity scenes in them, and I suppose if this one's in that realm, I can see where he's coming from.
So, all right, it's set in East Great Falls. There is a Stifler in it. So this is essentially what the women version of American Pie. So there's 4 female friends who are all trying to get, who make a pact to all try and get their sex on, I suppose, and it's just like terribly done. So they all fall in love with this same guy who is apparently a high schooler. He's a 29-year-old man. He definitely looks like a 29-year-old man. He looks so old. I can't stress this enough. And in the process of everyone trying to fall in love with this guy, they all, I guess one of them actually falls in love with him, and the other 3 have friends that, male friends that try and help them, either A, make him jealous. The second one would be, this nerdy guy who knows all of this guy's quirks. So obviously, the woman who paired up with that guy, you can see it's writing on the wall the whole way through the movie. And then there's this really nerdy chick who is the valedictorian, and there's this nerdy guy who's into it. And that's where that ends up going. It just ends up being a whole bunch of dry humping the entire movie. For some reason, Danny Trejo is in the film.
Hell yeah.
Doesn't say a single word the entire film.
That's incredible.
He's kind of just in scenes and in the background and offers nothing. Doesn't. He's kind of one of those people that just sort of drifts in and out of the background. You're I know that guy. It doesn't share any commonalities with any of the other ones. So Eugene Levy doesn't appear in it. I don't know. I did not enjoy this film at all. If you want to watch a shitty rom-com, go and watch any of those Netflix films, To All the Boys I Loved Before. Anything with Noah Centineo tends to be pretty decent, or pretty okay. This just totally flopped for me, quite literally.
So was this a 3-star film for you, Adam? It sounds like a 3-star review.
Nah, this is a 1.
Ooh.
This is a 1-star film.
I'm just wondering what the difference between this and Expedition Happiness was.
I enjoyed Expedition Happiness because I got out of it. Yeah, I did.
Expedition of Happiness has a set of tits, so
That's
No, it doesn't have a set of tits, actually.
I know, I was kidding.
But you're right, that probably would have...
5 stars. Expedition of Happiness.
No. But yeah, this, I don't know,
What did you go in expecting this to be, though? Because I am one of those people who I've seen all the American Pie movies, and outside of the the proper ones, they all suck. They're so bad.
Yeah.
And
you're right.
It's 2020. They're not going to get better.
But I didn't expect them to like really get like no like I thought that at least have like a storyline that was semi intriguing or like something different, but it's just like a rehash. Also, the director's name is Mike Elliott, and I was like, what else has this guy done? And he's done like all of his films have like an average of two. He did Scorpion King 4. I didn't even know there was a fourth one.
Classic.
It is a classic. That's getting deep into the Scorpion King mythology.
and Blue Crush 2.
The best one in the Blue Crush series.
And I was like, all right. Sorry, you go.
So one thing that I find really interesting about this is I've seen the trailer, and the dialogue. Look, I'm not particularly too worried about the nudity and the horniness of the movie like you, Adam, but one thing that I do find really, really fucking strange about this is that it's called Girls Rule. You got female protagonists. It's not written by any women, and every single character talks like a crazy person. Like,
oh yeah, they're all like sociopaths, and also there's no like all the girls. It's like everyone's in Mean Girls. They're all just like bitches to one another, and they're all fighting over the same dude, and like totally.
Even, like,
sorry,
beyond that, it's just like the way that they talk is like how it's like an adult man has imagined how a horny teenage girl talks, and it's like really, really, really like upsetting.
Jeez, I wonder how that happened. Oh wait, that is what happened.
Yeah, and especially like when you're watching movies like I guess like Lady Bird as an obvious
Book
example.
Smart as well.
Book Smart, yeah, like coming of age teen movies that have female leads that are written by women. You're like, oh, okay, all of this dialogue actually sounds like real things people would say.
And actually makes sense.
The first American Pie, like the guys are like pieces of shit, but like they're like believable and they're not saying anything, or you're like, people don't talk like that.
Yeah, we all grew up in that era. Everyone talked like that.
Everyone was constantly making like the Stifler face of like, oh, the whole time. But yeah, like every single line said in this like trailer was just like people. Yeah, it's bad. You're brave for watching it, Adam.
It is bad, and like it's so on the nose. There's even a bit where like the girl Stifler like jumps up on top of a van and like gives this whole like high schooler speech, and the whole time I was like, no one would ever like this is beyond the realm of reality, and what you're saying sounds like you're a dipshit. Like, oh, I hated everything about it. Don't watch this film. All right, Kris, are you back?
Yeah, I am back. I missed most of your review. The only stuff I heard was you wanting more nudity and
that was the whole review.
So...
That was the whole review. Yeah, 100%. Tell us what you watched this week, Kris.
I won't watch it then.
Yeah, don't.
Hubie Halloween, it's called. So it's the next Adam Sandler installment in the Netflix, I suppose, deal. I just needed something light and easy to watch, so that's why this came up. So the main character, Hubie, played by Adam Sandler, he works as a delicatessen. He's essentially the person the whole town ridicules. Throwing things at him, picking on him, all that sort of thing, doing pranks. His real passion is Halloween, so he creates all these settings around his house and so forth, or his mum's house, because he still lives at home at roughly 40-ish, or whatever his age is meant to be. He's kind of like the town official Halloween helper. So, and aren't pranking him. He's just a nice guy, I suppose. So amongst all the pranks that are played on Hubie, he ends up being involved in an actual crime investigation where he tries to solve this mystery for the rest of the movie. The things I liked about the movie was his Swiss Army type thermos. I'd really like to own one. It was ridiculous, but had so many different gadgets in it, from a vacuum cleaner. I think there was a megaphone in there.
That was the only good gag in the whole film.
Flare gun, just this sort of Swiss Army in the film as well. And yeah, so the one thing it didn't have was a compass too, and he that was probably the only thing he needed in one point of the movie. So I suppose it was good for most things. The other thing I enjoyed about the movie was the cameos. So I'm obviously watched a lot of Adam Sandler movies, and I've liked some of his earlier work, and I just keep watching them because look, I'm hoping for there to be another gem like Uncut Gems was. But yeah, the cameos, and references to previous movies. So in the movie, there's O'Doyle Rules, so he's the bully. So that was a reference to Billy Madison. There's Ben Stiller redoing his role. I think the name was Hal. It's a nurse within Happy Gilmore. So he's there it's a mental institution in this one, but it's a similar sort of role. And I didn't pick this up until I looked at the Modern Family actress to see the other movie that she'd been in. I forgot that she was in Happy Gilmore as well. Her name's Julie Bowen. But all the female, or not all, but a lot of female characters with Adam Sandler movies their initials are VV. So this one was Violet Valentine. In Happy Gilmore, it's Veronica Vaughn. Veronica Vaughn and Billy Madison, I think, or one of the two. Or Virginia Vanette in another one. So for some reason he's done that. So I thought that was an interesting little link. There's heaps of cameos too, like Kevin James is in there, Steve Buscemi, Rob Snyder, of course. Shaquille O'Neal randomly. He's got this feminine voice as a Halloween presenter, a radio station presenter, which is just bizarre. But it's Shaq, so he can do what he wants, and I'm not going to say anything because he'll,
What did you rate this film, Kris?
I ended up giving it a 2. But that's mostly because it's reflecting my nostalgia with the cameos and past references to past movies. So it was between a 1.5 and a 2 for me, really.
Okay.
Nothing outstanding. It's not very scary. So for a Halloween movie, very immature, lots of toilet humor. It's not quite as predictable as I thought with the sort of ending. Did have a little bit of a plot there, I suppose, but not much. But yeah, it was what I needed just to switch off and relax. So I would only recommend you watch this if you have watched essentially all of Adam Sandler's other movies. And if you've done that, why not? You might as well watch another one. So yeah, the other reference too from the earlier movie that I watched, Birds of Prey, was all the girls for the ones on TV were wearing the same outfit as Harley Quinn. So I suppose there's another reference to the other movie. But yeah, it's like okay, 1.5 to 2.
Yeah. So did you guys? Any of you guys watch this?
I'll go after you, D.
All right. So I watched this film. I did not like it at all. I'm usually pretty okay with like Adam Sandler doing a voice and stuff like that. This was too much.
Yeah, the voice is dumb.
It just kept going. The thermos was like the only gag that like I thought was so stupid it maybe gave me like a small chuckle. The story was incomprehensible. I just cannot get over that like what he was probably paid for this film. Yeah, like I don't think the cameos were enough for me to be invested. Like, because they're in all of his Happy Madison films. So I don't know. I would say that this is probably one of the worst ones that I've seen him put out.
I knew this was a good idea to avoid when you messaged me literally telling me not to watch it, because you tell me to watch shit.
Oh, of course.
And you're like, oh yeah, check out The Babysitter Killer Queen. Great movie. And I'm like, no, Adam, I'm not going to do that.
That was a great movie.
When I got this message to say, don't watch it, I was like, oh, this is going to be bad. So then I saw the trailer for it, and I did not even get to the end of the trailer. That fucking accent, why? Why do that to a film?
So it's a reference to an SNL bit. So that in itself is also a reference.
Joe, I had the Adam Sandler Best of SNL DVD when I was a kid, and there is still no reason to do that in 2020. No one else had that DVD except me.
I just don't know how it's sitting on number 3 on Netflix at the moment in Australia.
Because people watch shit. That's what I tried to tell you last time. You cannot use...
But I'm usually the guy who loves shit. I'm the guy who consumes the shit and enjoys it. This was just... I would totally skip this.
Before we move on, I just realized that last time I was on this podcast, I hadn't seen Babysitter Killer Queen, and now I have, and it is by far the worst movie I've seen this year.
Wow, you're an idiot. You got no idea what you're talking
It
about.
is like, I know you love YouTube videos and love when movies have been turned into YouTube videos, but it felt like internet humor from like 2012 turned into a movie. It was real bad.
Maybe he's getting the same nostalgia kicks that Kris got to make Hubie Halloween at 2.
Yeah, maybe. All right, let's jump into the movie of the week.
Let's do it.
Sounds good.
All right, so this week's movie was Upgrade, directed by Lee Wallen, and with a budget.
Lee Winnell? I never know how to pronounce his
Oh
name.
yeah,
It's Lee Winnell.
Lee Winnell.
Got to get the hometown boy's name right, because you didn't get one hometown boy name right last time.
All right, the director of Saw, Invisible Man. It had a budget.
Incorrect. He didn't direct Saw. Sorry to cut you off again. James Wan directed Saw. He wrote and starred in Saw. Keep going, Adam.
All right, budget of $5 million USD.
Budget of $4 million.
A box office of $17 million USD. It stars Logan Marshall Green. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Simon
got it.
Maiden as Stem, Linda Cropper and Betty Gabrielle as the police officer. Linda was the wife. What did everyone think?
Yeah, I love this movie. I've seen this movie 3 times. Makes me really proud that it was made in Melbourne for such a small budget, especially seeing as how good it looks and how good it is, really. And yeah, it's just good to see some good homegrown sci-fi / action horror stuff.
Yeah, I also love this film. I was pleasantly surprised. Like, I think that the story's... I liked how the story wrapped up, and I think that that's what really pushed me into that, like, thinking it's a fantastic sci-fi film. In terms of, like, the way that the film's shot, like, you can definitely tell that it's shot on a low budget, but that doesn't take away from any of the scenes for me. I really love that where they keep him perfectly centered in the frame, like that cinematic. Yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this film.
Yeah, I really liked it as well. I thought it was awesome. Being a Saw fan as well, I liked the couple of, I suppose you call them Easter eggs, don't you, that were in there. I don't know if you guys noticed the couple of pictures of Jigsaw on the wall. You guys notice that?
I didn't, but I do know that J1 is one of the names on a doorbell in one of the buildings he goes to.
Nice.
Joel,
I definitely enjoyed that.
What did you think, Joel?
So I literally finished watching this about an hour before we started recording this podcast. I had been meaning to watch it for ages. Like, I'm shocked that I didn't watch it when it was at the cinema, because it's like right up my alley. Yeah, I thought it was good, but it reminded me a lot of other movies that I think I like more. It had the lower budget, but like really big, I guess, idea, but reminded me a lot of both Dredd and the first John Wick. Like, it's a small story told in like a massive cinematic world.
Yes.
Where it's just focused on like one very particular event, and it's like Upgrade is like 100 minutes, and the other 2 movies are also like quite tight. I really liked that part of it, but yeah, like those points that I guess reminded me of other movies that I think I like a little bit more. I had a good time with it, and there was a lot of it that I did really, really like. There was a few things that I wish weren't in the movie. So one thing that's come up in this review was something that I didn't actually like that much, which was during the fight choreography, to show that he is not moving in a human way, they keep him perfectly centered in the middle of the frame, and I think that was good in some scenes, but especially when you get towards the end of the movie, they start overdoing it a little bit.
Okay.
And it gets a little bit like I'm watching like an adaptation of like Street Fighter or something.
Yeah.
But
Did you notice the part 2 where the robot, Stem, may actually physically moved his head because he has no control of anywhere above the neck? You guys notice that?
Yeah, he uses his hand to move the head.
Yeah, to move the neck in one of the fight scenes. I thought that was a good way to show its control.
Yeah, I like the fight scenes, and I like the way that like Stem's controlling his body from the neck down, and the way that they like choreograph the fight scenes. It's just like some of the actual direction. I was like, I don't know if I would have done that. But also, if you gave me $5 million, I'd probably be dead in about 15 minutes. So
I wouldn't even get that far.
But yeah, it kind of like, if I had to pitch this movie, it's kind of like RoboCop meets Venom.
Yeah,
That's a good
yeah,
one.
it's
Yeah.
very similar to It gave me Venom vibes for sure.
And that has to at least somewhat be helped by the fact that Logan Marshall Green may as well just be Tom Hardy.
Yeah,
Looks exactly like him. Yeah.
it's crazy that this came out like only a couple of months before the Venom film, because the plot is at points identical.
Yeah,
And in my opinion, it's a way better film as well.
Yeah, that's not particularly a controversial opinion, but I do like that you dropped it like you were dropping a bomb.
oh, mate. When I watched Something Like It Hot, I was walking around like, I don't know what to tell anyone, but I think I've come up with the hottest take ever here.
So
Marilyn Monroe, bit of a babe.
So I think I probably am chucking a few extra like little points here, because it's a US film, but it's all filmed in Australia, and like there's just like you see the Balti Bridge.
Nah, see, I very much consider this an Australian film rather than a US film, because most of the actors are Australian, just because they're doing that real neutral accent that makes it try and sound like it's from America. I think I've sort of watched a few Australian films that do that over the past few years. I think, is it Predestination? Is that one?
Yeah, that's Australian.
Yeah, is that Ethan Hawke in that one?
Yep.
And there's another one as well. Actually, I don't know if it's really American based, but Other Life is another sort of low budget Australian sci-fi movie that's pretty good. And I give a lot of credit when you can make I guess $4 million in today's society. Making a film is sort of a shoestring budget, especially when you're going for this big sort of set piece things. And I appreciate the sort of cuts that Lee made around some corners to make it look better than it may have been produced, especially seeing as we have to consider that Lee Winnell's only made, at this point, I think 2 films. He'd made one of the Insidious films and I think another one, because James Wan had directed all their previous efforts that they teamed up on. And yeah, you're right. Seeing the Balti Bridge, seeing all these local locations used,
Like the Hume Highway in the car
Hume
chase
Highway,
scene.
yeah.
What else was there? I think like an interesting fact I read was the Balti Bridge screen is actually a mirrored image, so that the cars are driving on the right hand side. So they scrubbed obviously the name Balti Bridge out of the photo.
Cowards.
And then inversely flipped it so that they're driving on the wrong side of the road, so they didn't have to like film it in the middle of the night or stop congestion in Melbourne.
I love how this film's idea of the future, though, is literally Melbourne from 2018 with everyone driving Teslas. That's essentially
like the car.
their idea of the dystopian future. Yeah, the car was really cool.
And it also, like, I don't know if you guys have seen that Amazon movie or TV series called Upgrade, but like the cars were pretty like similar. And I guess some of the concepts are pretty, or looked pretty similar as well. Especially like the whole car crash scene. I feel like that was taken straight from this movie and put into that TV show.
Wouldn't be surprised. I think this is one of those ones that's going to age quite well in terms of a few things that it's influenced, especially. And I hope this gets a bit more credit than it is getting. Like, I know that it's taken off in some cult circles, but I found this was a better film than The Invisible Man. I feel like the things he tried here weren't as sort of static and easy, and you could clearly tell that he wasn't making a big budget Hollywood film, and that he was using the skills that he learnt making Saw on that small budget, especially the short film, to maximize what he got out of it here. And the scenes of gore are sick in this movie. Like the first fight scene, the first real action scene, and I can kind of see where Joel's going with they overuse the sort of perfectly still rotoscope, whatever it's called, later on, because its best execution is the first time you see it. The first action scene in this film is amazing, like next level, and nothing from there sort of lives up to it, but it doesn't lose much either. It's just the way the first fight scene is the best of the film, in my opinion.
I did find the violence and stuff like that in the movie really good. Like, it was like really well used. Like, the movie is quite violent, but it kind of pulls punches at points. But then when you're getting hit with I guess far more graphic violence, you're not expecting it.
I think it's like, I relate that sort of thing to, say, Green Room, the film with Anton Yelchin, does it very well, where you only get a few scenes of violence through the whole time, but they're fairly graphic and they keep you on edge waiting for it to happen a lot more. Midsummer's the same.
Yeah, both of those I really like. Great films.
Yeah.
And I think I'm with you, Josh. I think I like this more than Invisible Man, and I am excited to see what he does in the future.
I believe he's doing the Wolfman next.
He is with Ryan Gosling.
Oh, I knew you'd like that one. I believe so. Oh, that's one other thing I'll add. I was looking up other casting options, like who he tried to get first, and apparently Christian Bale was the first option for the main character of Upgrade. And secondly, the second option, and I predict I would have given this film a 5 if they had have got this man. Jake Gyllenhaal was also considered to be the lead in this film, and that would have been amazing.
See, that's actually one of the things I was going to say that I think I quite liked about the film in its
So they
entirety
didn't have
is
a
they
main
didn't have like a cast that like I recognize. I feel like that worked. Like there wasn't like a standout like lead. The only person I recognized was Betty Gabriel, the police officer who was in Get Out.
Yes, she was. And I like a lot of the actors in this have been in a lot of small Australian shows. I know the girlfriend or the wife has been in Winners and Losers and things like that. And the guy behind the bar in the bar scene is Shane Jacobson's brother, I think, the guy who made Kenny. I think this guy who actually directed Kenny plays the guy behind the bar in one of the scenes.
They should have got Shane Jacobson as Kenny in the bar.
Fun fact, I used to work with Shane Jacobson's nephew, which would have been the son of that guy.
Fuck.
Yeah.
That is a
Should
fun
have
fact.
cast him as well.
Should
Get
have got
everyone in
me.
there.
Just get me.
Yes.
I reckon Christian Bale was his excuse, Josh, that he needed to return some videotapes. Was that the reason he couldn't play?
Maybe, or maybe they wouldn't let him lose enough weight for the role. I heard that's another thing. Like you got to let him weigh in whatever he wants.
Yeah. I watched your recommendation Emily's recommendation last week, American Psycho. Great film.
Oh yeah.
That was that reference there.
You still haven't seen that, have you, Adam?
No. I've seen American Psycho.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Highly recommended. All right, let's wrap this up.
Yep.
So we all recommend going out and seeing Upgrade. What's the movie for next week, Josh?
So you know what? Seeing as Joel's been on here and he's recommended a cooked 2018 French horror movie, I think we might do a different kind of cooked 2018 French horror movie and watch Climax for next week.
Jesus Christ.
Yes.
I'm gonna probably hate this film, but
No, you will not. This will be you'll appreciate what this film goes for. Trust
all
me.
right, no worries. We'll see. Look, thanks so much, everyone, for listening. This has been Film School Podcast, the podcast where we talk about all the movies that we've watched throughout the week, along with the main topic. Next week is Climax. All the details of the movies that we've watched are in the description below. Thanks so much, Joel, for coming on and guesting again.
Problem.
Plug yourself. Go, take it away.
So you can find me on most social medias under Douche13, so DUSCH13. So that's Twitter and Instagram. Or you can find me on Letterboxd as Duscher, DUSCHER. You can listen to my other podcasts. They're on the Sanspants Radio Network. Just head to sanspantsradio.com. They're all there. And keep, I guess, just everyone, as long as you promise to have a good time, that's the best plug I could hope for.
Awesome.
I feel like this is like Hot Ones where you have to actually make it to the end of a conversation with Adam to earn your plug.
I got him to plug it at the start. Thank you. I introduced him before you.
I know.
All right.
Yeah, there's a lot of testosterone in this room tonight.
Excellent. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you next week.
We missed you, Em.